Hello. I apologize if I sneeze a lot today. Oh, I forgot to change the text again. I apologize if I sneeze a lot today. I think I may have allergies of some kind. It's incredibly annoying, but whenever winter starts, I find myself sneezing all the time. So I apologize for that if I sound a little congested. As you can see, I totally forgot to change the words again. But today I am working on a creature known as the Carbunclo, or the Carbuncle. I didn't use the term Carbuncle because if you look up Carbuncle, you may get gemstones. It's also, however, a medical term for large red boils, and I didn't think people wanted to see that. So if you search for it, search Carbunclo. That will come up much better with what you're looking for. All right. So this little creature is actually quite variable in description. I am taking a few specific design ideas. I'm going to try to combine and pull from as many as I can. However, it has been described as everything from a small mammal to a literal clam. So we're going with the small furry mammal type description. I'm going to try to combine a bunch of the descriptions the best of my ability. I'm doing a bit of a weasel type body shape. If you pull up like the Wikipedia page that has an overview of it, you'll find they have a pretty good list of the different descriptions. We'll be going over that as I sculpt. But the one thing that all these creatures have in common is they are associated with treasure. Either they contain it themselves, or they're like a beacon or a guardian of it, or they lead you to it. And they almost always have a very beautiful gem encrusted in their foreheads, or in the case of the clam, I believe inside of them. And as soon as people are nearby, it shuts up. With the animals, they often have a lidded, almost eyeball type gem in their forehead. I'm going with red. However, if you look at the descriptions, the colors actually vary of what that is. One of the things, I think the wiki page says that some of them claim that the color varies based on what the Carbunclo is protecting or guarding, or what it is filled with. But red seems slightly more common, so we're going with red. Plus, I think carbuncles, the stone is typically red. And I like red, so we're going to go with red. Now, I don't have lights or reflective paint to make this a little more convincing, so we are just going to have to go with red gemstone, little glass gem that I have here. But I think that'll work. Now, I don't anticipate this sculpture taking me too long. We're going to go with the weird mix of a weasel, cat, dog, fox kind of shape. I may try to work some, like a little bit of shelling or like a hard carapace, almost like turtle skin or shells. I may try to work a little bit of something like that into it. I'm thinking armadillo-like a little bit, but not sure if we're going to do that. That was only mentioned in, I think, one of the things I read, so we may not do that. It just depends on how it looks as I'm working with it. Most of my description is coming from a specific thing here. I'm going to see if I can find the letter for the video when I do the shortened video. I didn't have time to find it last night, but there's apparently a letter that was written by a Spanish soldier in South America, from South America. He was at Castillo de San Gregorio, and he claimed to have found one, and he described it as a small brown-furred weasel type creature with a gemstone lodged in its forehead. And I think it popped out of a cave. Yes. Yes, and it had a little hood of skin, or almost like an eyelid over top of the gemstone that it could hide. And they had to like push it back. So they killed it. That's the sad thing, that every time I read about so many of these legends, because the Carbunclo is so associated with gemstones and wealth, common theme is that people hunt them down and kill them because they get riches from it, which is really a common theme for a lot of mythological creatures. It's kind of sad. Like if you look at unicorns and such, so often it's like, oh, they have these magical powers and everybody hunts them down and kills them. So I am drawing most of my descriptions from that kind of small weasel with like a lidded stone on its forehead. These do remind me a bit of, I think it's in the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in the Zelda games. They have the little, is it called a blurpy or something? That gives you rupees and gemstones if you follow them and shoot them. I never did finish all the extra side quests with that. I really should. It reminds me a little bit of that. I don't know if that's what they drew inspiration from. I do believe they have 3 eyes, which would kind of match a little bit of the description, and they're luminescent. But I wonder if they drew inspiration from that or if it was from some other form of mythology that I don't know of. So of the descriptions, I think the weirdest one was the clam. Some of them are described as clams, sometimes having legs, almost crab-like, and having sort of a blue-greenish glow. Others almost sound like will-o'-the-wisps that guide people or become a beacon to a specific spot where treasure is. Treasure is basically the big thing with the Carbunclo, glowing and leading people to treasure or trying to keep them away from it as a guardian of treasure. Sometimes the treasure is itself the gemstone and inside the creature's body, which is why so many of the stories are about hunting them and killing them. Others, they try to follow or trap it to its den. There's a thing on the wiki, hold on, the wiki page. Yeah, there's a thing on the wiki page about, let's see, this is under Chilote, I think is the way to say that. Chilean type mythology. So this one has a long written out like ritual of how you would get the Carbunclo to lead you to its treasure trove that it's protecting. It involves a lot of things like trying to snare it with a string or a belt and coming back the next day. And I think you have to have a lady, an old woman with a black cat or something. Hold on. Yes. Way to return to the site before morning at dawn and search for the signs of the thrown object, like the belt or whatever personal belonging you threw. And it will stick out of the ground wherever the treasure trove is, typically at the bottom of a bush. Then you have to wait again until midnight to dig it up in a certain way with a new shovel, accompanied by an old woman holding a black cat. When you've dug a yard deep, you must throw the black cat into the hole. That seems really mean. I don't know why you would do that. Which will vanish, but then reappear, and for each yard you dig, you have to toss the cat in again. If not, you'll die because of some poison inside the thing. And you cannot show any sign of fear or the treasure will turn to rock. So that was a more specific ritual. I'm gonna, for the next video, see if I can find, like, the original source so I'm not just reading off Wikipedia. But, so there's a mix. There's a lot of a mix of, like, what exactly this creature is, what it's guarding, how you have to track it down. Most of them say that people just got really greedy and killed it and took the gemstone on its forehead. Sometimes they have gold inside of them. Some of them I think were even associated with lizards. But the main thing is it's a protector of treasures or precious metals of some sort. And it has a glowing light. Now, one of them mentioned it being a cat with a little tuft of fur under its chin that glows. So we are going to do that. I'm going to do a very weasel-like face, but I'm going to do a little tuft of fur under its chin. And I'm going to use probably glow-in-the-dark paint, maybe. I have some of that. So that should, I think, look pretty cool. Alright, so we're just trying to cover this up real quick. He's going to have short little stubby legs like a weasel. Alright, let's blend this all together. Now the clay is a little harder to work with today, and it will be for the next several weeks, months, I guess, because of temperature. Whenever it's colder, the clay is less flexible, less malleable, and you kind of have to warm it up a good bit. And because my hands are always cold, I can't really do that very well. So it takes me a little bit to get it to blend together nicely, and it tends to crack a lot more. It is much easier to do these in the summer. So if it takes me a bit to meld this together and it looks super lumpy, I apologize. It's just because of the temperature. It's going to take me a bit more effort to get it to cooperate with me. Now, some of them also compared it to a small dog. I know video game portrayals I've seen, I think they make it very fox-like, or almost like a, what's the little mouse that looks like a kangaroo? A jerboa? Is that something like that? I've seen a few that look a bit like that as well. To be honest, the design is pretty up in the air, because some of the accounts literally say that nobody got close enough to even see what it looked like, and later accounts go with like a clam or a small furry animal or an animal with a bit of a shell. So I guess you could argue lore-wise that it's just any small creature that's been tasked with guarding some sort of treasure. But yes, small animal is really the only consistent thing in glowing gemstone. Now, it is a shame I don't have wiring to do the lights. I could actually light the forehead up, but I don't know if the wires would survive the oven is the issue. So I'd almost have to make a hollow tube that I could fit the lights in later. So that makes it a bit more complicated. Okay. The eyeball should go there. Actually, no, we gotta move, hold on. We gotta move the eyes forward a bit. That's too much. We gotta have the eyes closer to here and here. That way the forehead gem can be up here. All right. Let me fix this a bit. I am trying to conserve clay just a little bit, because I'm getting low, and I have a few commissions that I have to do this week, so I need to make sure I don't accidentally use all of my supplies. Alright, so now we're going to make the lids. Hold on. First off, let's get the face shape the same. Here we go. Weasels also have fairly small little round ears. I think I'm going to do the weasel size of ear, but maybe like cat shaped. I think that'll work well. Alright, so now we're going to make it alright. So we need to add more to this side of the face just so that it matches the other side of the face so they look symmetrical. And then we'll put lids around the eyes. Make that look a little better. I am thinking about doing some new series of videos. I've been wanting to do some more interactive type videos where people get to give me feedback. I think enough people like commented when I asked for a name for my little opossum that I think this will work. But we'll see. Time will tell. But I'm thinking about setting up some little scenes and calling it Unfinished Fairy Tales. And letting people help me build the little fairy tale scene. So my first video that I'm probably going to do is going to be a little mole that's a merchant, and he's just going to have a simple little backdrop, but I'm not going to decide what he's going to sell. I'm going to let people tell me what they want him to sell, and then I'll add to the scene with each new detail that I'm given. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I think it might be. So I'm going to try it. Here we go. I like it long ways a little better. Okay. All right. Let's take our smaller. Oh, even smaller. Perfect. Looking a little too snake-like, so I'm gonna round the eyes out just a little more. Okay. There we go. We're getting a little bit of the face shape done here. Let's see. Let me look at the head of a weasel and see what that looks like. This has like a little button nose at the end. Okay. Okay, so if we're doing the nose. All right. Oop. Oh, there went my. There we go. Okay. There we go. He's got a little nose now. All right. Now I think we're gonna smooth the body out a bit before I progress anymore. Actually, let's go ahead and wrap the body in another thing of clay. Like so. All right. All right. Almost done with the shape. And of course, he's going to be furry, so we will do a fur pattern once we're finished. But that'll have to probably wait until we do the legs and everything, I think. All right. The way I did his mouth makes him look happy. But I'm fine with that. That's cute. Come on. Blend together, clay. Come on. As we are making pretty good progress, I've the main shape of the head done, and it's only been like 30 minutes, so. I do also have some random sculptures I want to do in the future here. Probably, I really want to do a centaur cowboy. I don't know why. I just really want to. So, I know I usually try to do more traditional stuff, but every once in a while I want to do something silly and random. I am also getting a bottle cutter, and I want to do some scenes in a bottle, but because those have so many because those designs would have so many different types of media in them, and I would have to get so many tools from around my house, I'm thinking of doing them as videos that I will post gradually over time to help me give more content without as much live stuff. I think that'll work well. So we'll see, but I probably won't be able to do much of that until the end of December into January. But I'll probably I really want to do a dredge scene from the video game Dredge. A scene in a bottle. I have a pretty good notion of what I want to do, but it's going to take multiple sections and parts. So it's not really something I could do for a live video, but I will do probably a edited video compilation of it. Then I can break it down in parts and post it over time. Stuff like that. Or work on it and post it over time. That way I am posting more often, but I don't have to kill myself trying to make tons of content just so that people see things. All right. Because I would do this a lot more often. I just don't have the money to do this many sculptures, and I also don't have the time. I also have some paintings I want to do. And I'm not sure that the paintings are going to turn out well, so they are not going to be live. Because I am not that great at painting. Okay. Our little Carbunclo is almost got a normal looking body. Almost. Not quite. I'm going to roll them on the table here until I get this smooth. Now, the one very detailed description that described it as a weevil, a weasel, that is not the same thing. A weasel, not a weevil, mentioned it having a short tail that was a bit bushy, kind of like a squirrel's, so we're going to go with that as well. Okay. Give him a little egg-shaped body-ish kind of here. Okay. Knit, knit. We're getting there. All right. Now I think that's about right. I should probably go ahead and do the eyelid here on the gemstone, because that seemed to be a pretty consistent theme, that they're able to close or hide the gemstone with like a lidded. We could do it sideways. That might be kind of cool. I think I will do it sideways. Like so. There we go. And now we're going to do the other side. A little bit more clay. See, we're giving him a little bit of a lid around that, so it looks a little bit more like an eyelid. Not just a gem stuck in its head. Okay. There we go. There we go. So now he's got a bit of an eyelid around the gemstone so that he can close it. So it's almost like a third eye. All right. So now, should we go ahead and do the ears? Let me pull up the picture of the weasels, not the weevils, the weasels. Okay, they have big round ears. Kind of cute. So I think we'll do the same size, but point them slightly so they look more cat-like. All right. A little bit more clay. And then we should have enough for a little bushy tail and the little legs. Still, I don't know if I should do Still debating if I should try to do some shells, some hard shell type designs on its back. Because that did show up in one of the descriptions. So, we'll see, we'll see. I'll see how much clay I have left over after I do the legs, because I might not have enough, and I don't want to have to open from my new pack because I need some of that for another thing. I am going to have to order more clay. Yep. Alright, and then we're going to point them slightly. I know right now it looks a lot like a Sphynx cat, which is fine. It was not the original intention, but it's fine. It will look less hairless when we start adding the when we add the fur pattern. And of course, next video when we paint it, it won't look like this anymore. It won't look like a naked hair mole rat or something. Or a little angry Sphynx cat. Alright. Okay. So we're now going to take this. Kind of round like weasel ears, but slightly pointed like kitty cat ears. Okay. So I'm trying to create a fusion between cats and weasels. I don't know if I'm achieving it, but it's fine because it's an imaginary creature that isn't described terribly well. So I can kind of do what I want, but I am trying to be accurate. I do usually try to be fairly accurate. Okay. And then it's supposed to have a little tuft of fur. Let's see if we can... And again, well, we are going to do the fur pattern. Just don't want to do too much of it yet because I know if I do fur pattern now, it will get smashed out and I'll just have to do it again. So no point in doing stuff twice. But we gave it a little tuft of fur that's going to be under its neck. Right there. Alright. And I will try to use some glow-in-the-dark paint on that when we do the, we do the video next week. The painting video. All right. Okay. Now we're going to give him some little legs. Thankfully, little legs are pretty short. So, then we just got to do a tail. And see if we can do a little shell on the back. Let me see if I can find the, There is a fun little note here that talks about the original things with the conquistadors. They observed 2 lights, and made an account of it, and they compared it to the legends of dragons having like gemstones in their brains, which I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to look that up in further detail as well. But it kind of developed from some of those. A smallish animal with a small shining mirror on its head that glowed like a coal. And they compared it to like a gemstone. So some of the earlier accounts were like that, but they never did find the creature. My assumption, you know, what they actually see is that maybe they saw like a one-eyed creature or something that was reflective, because animal eyes are super reflective in the dark. But there are different associated myths that come from that. Let me see here. Okay, so the one we are using, the full description, I'm just reading from the wiki page at the moment, is a small animal like a weasel or a comadreja with dark brown fur that was very soft and smooth, short tail, a little bit bushier, less bushy than squirrels, front or back paws and body like a weasel, long head, large eyes, and between them, in the middle of its forehead, a singular stone like a hazelnut in the shape of diamond point, which was covered with a little cap or lid that they had to pry back that was almost like skin. It wouldn't take food, so they slaughtered it and skinned it. So that was one of the letters that I am basing my design heavily off of. Let's see. There is another thing about almost a devil or a lizard-like creature as well. Where is the one that mentions the shell? And there's different theories about exactly where the legends came from. Da-da-dum-dum-dum. Where is this? There's some logical explanations with the mollusk version or the clam version, but not for the animal version, at least not on the wiki page. Like I said, I feel like the eyes of an animal, they glow so well. They glow so much in the dark that I feel like a lot of legends we get with, you know, creatures at night that glow and have glowing eyes, it's really just because their eyes are very reflective. I mean, you go back to the story of Mothman, you have something similar. So I'm assuming it's that, or the ones that refer more to fairy lights or like will-o'-the-wisps is where we get that bioluminescence thing going on. Which is something that I think it isn't perfectly explained, but has been explained in more detail. But like, I always love reading about will-o'-the-wisps. It's not really something I can sculpt terribly well because it's just a shining light. But it is something similar to that. There we go, yes. So one of the original ones, Tarapaka, I'm not sure of the pronunciation of that. In that location, it was said to look like a clam with a white-blue shine that could be seen from almost a league away. It would shut itself up and be mistaken for a stone. In some, it had a shape like a corn cob, but it had more than 4 limbs, which makes me think more crab-like, to be honest. That was the bivalve one. Where is the... Here we go. It was a creature larger than a mouse, but equipped with a hard shell and a crudely... let's see. Crudely described by a certain laborer... Yes. So there is a shell, but typically it's associated with the bivalve or clam version. So I am going to see if we can add a little bit of a shell to its back. Just to kind of pay tribute to that other description, because the rest of this small dog, small weasel is kind of what we're going for. So I feel like we've covered that version pretty well. Okay, that is too small. Way too small. Legs need to be chunkier. Yeah. Right height, but wrong width. Alright. See, during the Great Drought of 1924 through 25, there were reported sightings of carbunclos on moonless nights. Around 1925, a family of carbunclos was seen descending from the mountain of Talahuan toward the Rio Grande. Interesting. What is the Great Drought of 1920? Okay, so that's in Chile. And its droughts caused low amounts of snow in the Andes. Interesting. So yeah, that kind of harkens back to the bioluminescence type thing, or the weird glowing lights that we've never really been able to explain terribly well. Well, we know they occur all the time. I know in swamps we usually go with decay and gases and things like that, but because it is a glowing light, the carbunclo is commonly associated with stuff like that. I think that's why some of the things mentioned it floats like fireflies or like a glowing light when it's not attached to an animal. There are, however, things that are bioluminescent like mushrooms and that have natural glowing qualities. So I guess it's also hypothetically possible that an animal could get something like that on it. But I'm assuming when it's described more like an eye, that it's, you know, reflectiveness of an eye. But then we run into the issue of, you know, the gentleman who wrote back as a soldier, was he just making stories up, or did he really find a random little creature with a gemstone or a stone stuck in its head that he had to pry back? Or pry open, rather. What did he see and what did he actually have? Because I'm sure there's plenty of different types of weasels. Because usually I think things with mythology, if they're not, like, created to make a point, like some fairy tales are told to make a point about certain moral things. If they're not made to do that, they're a lot of times kind of like cryptids based on accounts where, you know, someone was scared in the dark, they don't know quite what they saw, but they saw something. And it's a little bit more interesting when it's a small animal and they're clearly not afraid of it, you know? It's interesting that there would be so many legends. Right. Front legs attached. All right. I'll have to shape these more like paws in a second here. All right, now we got to do the back legs. Okay. It's reminding me a little bit of a hot dog right now. A little like a wiener dog. They're called dachshunds. That's what they're called. They're just reminding me of a dachshund. Because of the way I sculpted the body. I could make him sit. That would work. I think I might do that. Alright, roll this together. Oh, this is getting off the table, isn't it? There we go. That's where it should be. Keep forgetting that my camera is slightly angled because my desk is actually sitting like this. And it doesn't quite line up. It messes with my perception when I'm doing this. Alright. Yeah, and I think putting it in a sitting position also kind of lends to the dog-like attribute. Okay. Shape the leg a little better. Okay. Let me shape the second one. Second leg. And then we'll add slight indentations for the paw shape. Okay, hold on. Start this one over. Okay. Let's attach this. It looks like currently a crossbreed between a weasel and a dachshund and a hairless cat. Which is... The hairless cat piece will be gone as soon as we put fur. But everything else will continue. But that's fine. We wanted a cross between a dog, cat, weasel, and that's what we're getting. Okay. And it has a bushy tail. Okay. So we got him sitting down like this. Now we're going to give him a short little bushy tail. Alright. I should probably do... Hold on. It's going to be loud. A little bit, yeah. Little bit of a base to firm it around, just so we're not doing solid clay. Because generally you don't want your clay to be too thick. That will cause issues with the baking. It'll break pretty easily. Okay. Short little bushy tail like a squirrel, but short. Okay. So I think once we get the tail on here, it's going to be time to start doing fur patterns. Let's stick this. Oh, hold on. We gotta wrap some more clay around this. All right. So we have our basic shape here. Now we are going to do fur patterns. And this is the extremely boring, let's start with the face. The extremely boring thing that takes a very long time. But is very important because it'll come back to haunt us if we don't when we paint this. Okay. All right. You can see the fur pattern that we're doing. I think I did do this last time and it worked pretty well. Yeah, this speeds it up a bit. Yeah, this does speed it up a bit. It's a bit more uniform than the other way, but okay. Okay. Okay, let me grab my other one here for the ears. All right. Actually, I think I'm going to add a little bit of a tip to this tail just to make it a little bit nicer looking. Attach the tail to the side here. And then add Alright, now we're going to do some quick little paw-shaped indentations here. One, two. Alright. All right, now I'm going to do one final thing. I think we're going to give him some little shells on his back. So this is what we have so far. Sitting there. Ah. All right. Let's see, where's my little... And I think we're going to make it slightly ridged, almost like a clam. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. All right, so there we go. We got a little shell there, and I think we're going to do a slightly smaller one on the back of his neck, just so that we can kind of pay tribute to the mollusk clam version, or the version that has a little bit of a shell. That works. Flatten it out a tad. There we go. Perfect. Well, not quite perfect. Let's fix that. All right. Trying to see if I could do a slightly smaller little one right here. Put it right there. And this will be our last little shell piece. There we go. I think I am going to kind of ridge the edges a tad here. I mean, clamshells typically don't quite have that, but I think it's going to look a little better just for the design. There we go. There we go. Alright, so he's got some shells on his back now. Should I do one on the nose? I think that'll be cute. We'll do a little one on the nose, and then I think we'll be finished with our little Carbunclo. Okay. And I'm trying to do the ridges to be a bit like shells. That's what I've been doing with this little tool, just faint ridging. That way we can kind of paint this a bit like the backs of shells. Alright. Alright, so I think our little Carbunclo is done. Let me pick him up. So I tried to combine all the different legends and appearances. We have a weasel-like thing with a bit of a cat-like ears and nose. He's sitting a bit like a dog. I tried to shape him a little bit like a dog. We gave him some shells on his back we're going to paint those to be a bit like mollusk shells, just because technically one version of the Carbunclo is a mollusk. But he has the big gem on his face. He has that, and he has a little tuft of fur that's going to be luminescent under his chin. But we are, hold on, there we go. You can see a little better if I do this. We are pretty much done with this little guy. I think he looks pretty good. So this is my take on the Carbunclo. We will be back next week, if I can talk, with the painting of this little creature. And I will also potentially see if I can find some more things to read during that time. I will be using stuff like that also for the edited video. But if you watch this, I do greatly appreciate it. I have fun making these little creatures. If you would like to see me do something specific, please comment and let me know. I do take most of the suggestions I get, as long as it's something within the realms of copyright and decency. Fan art, I usually only do if I recognize the source, but for classic mythology and, you know, anything that's appropriate enough for a video online, I will happily attempt. So yeah, let me know if there's something you'd like to see me sculpt, and I will be back next week with another live video, and hopefully in the interim I will have some re-uploads of some of my older videos with some new audio. At least that's what I intend to do. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful night.